The deep space exploration vessel Orion's Arrow drifted silently through the darkness at the edge of the Andromeda Galaxy. Commander Alan Price stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the vast star field displayed on the main view screen. After 20 years in Earth's Unified Space Command, he thought he had seen everything. He was wrong. "Commander, we're picking up unusual energy readings at coordinates 227 Mark 43, Lieutenant Olivia Grant reported, her fingers dancing across her console. "It's unlike anything in our database." Alan straightened his uniform. On screen, the view screen shifted to show a distant point of light that pulsed with an unnatural rhythm. Science Officer Greg Martinez approached the screen, his expression a mixture of awe and concern. "Sir, those energy patterns suggest technology far beyond our own," Greg said. "I believe we may be witnessing evidence of non-human intelligence." The bridge fell silent. Humanity had explored much of its galactic neighborhood over the past century, but had yet to encounter another spacefaring civilization. If Greg was right, this moment would change human history forever. "Yellow alert," Alan ordered calmly. "And open a channel broadcasting standard first contact greetings in all frequencies." Olivia nodded, activating the carefully crafted message that humanity had prepared decades ago for this very moment. The message contained mathematical sequences, basic scientific principles, and simple greetings in multiple Earth languages. "Message transmitting, sir," she confirmed. Minutes stretched into hours as Orion's Arrow maintained position. The crew rotated shifts, but no one wanted to leave their post. Alan sipped his third cup of coffee when Olivia's console suddenly lit. "Up, Commander! We're receiving a response!" The view screen flickered and revealed a being unlike anything humans had ever seen. It had a tall, slender body covered in what appeared to be both scales and fur, with 6 limbs arranged in a way that defied human anatomy. Its face featured multiple eyes positioned around an oval head, and what might have been a mouth opened and closed rhythmically. "Translation algorithms running," Olivia reported, her voice barely above a whisper. The being spoke, its voice translated by the ship's computer into flat, emotionless English. "Identify yourselves, trespassers." Alan stepped forward. "I am Commander Alan Price of the Earth vessel Orion's Arrow. We come in peace as explorers and wish to establish friendly contact with your species." The alien's multiple eyes blinked in sequence. "I am High Marshal Zakathar of the Varaxian Empire. You have entered restricted space." "We apologize for any intrusion," Alan replied. "We were unaware this region was claimed. We seek only peaceful exchange of knowledge." Zakathar's body shifted in what might have been a gesture of contempt. "Knowledge exchange? Your primitive vessel suggests you have little to offer the Empire. Prepare to be boarded for inspection." Greg approached Alan, keeping his voice low. "Sir, their ship is approaching rapidly. Energy readings indicate weapon systems far more powerful than ours." Alan maintained his diplomatic posture. "High Marshal, we would be honored to meet with representatives of your species, but we request that protocols for peaceful contact be established first." Olivia frowned at her console. "Commander, I'm detecting concerning patterns in their communications. Secondary channels are active. Military frequencies." "High Marshal," Alan tried again. "We represent a peaceful civilization." "Peaceful civilizations do not survive the void," Zakthar interrupted. "You will submit to inspection or be destroyed." Before Alan could respond, proximity alarms blared across the bridge. "Multiple vessels decloaking around us," Greg shouted. "We're surrounded." The view screen showed 5 Varaxian ships, each 3 times the size of Orion's Arrow, their hulls bristling with what were unmistakably weapon ports. The ships formed a perfect pentagon around the human vessel. "Shields up," Alan ordered. "Prepare emergency jump coordinates." "They've locked weapons on us," Greg reported, his voice steady despite the danger. Alan addressed the alien commander again. "High Marshal, we pose no threat to you. We seek only peaceful contact. Your species has not earned the right to address the Empire as equals," Zakthar declared. "Your technology is primitive. Your physical form is inefficient. You will serve as subjects or specimens." Olivia looked up from her console, her face pale. Sir, I've analyzed their language patterns. Their communication structure contains no concepts equivalent to compromise or mutual cooperation. Their lexicon is dominated by hierarchical terms. Negotiation window closing fast, Commander, Greg warned. Alan made a quick decision. Activate distress beacon. Message to Earth. First contact established with hostile species self-identified as the Varaxian Empire. Sending all data now, the Yo. First blast hit before he finished speaking. The bridge shook violently, throwing crew members to the floor. Emergency lights flashed red throughout the ship. Direct hit to our starboard shields, Greg reported. Shield capacity at 60%. Evasive. Maneuvers, Alan ordered. Prepare emergency jump. The ship rocked again as another blast struck. Sparks showered from a damaged console. They're targeting our engine systems, Olivia noted. They don't want to destroy us. They want to capture us. Alan hit the ship-wide communication button. All hands prepare for emergency jump. Security teams to battle stations. The Varaxian ships closed in, their coordinated movement suggesting extensive combat experience. Another blast rocked the human vessel. Jump engines charging, Greg I. reported. 30 seconds to jump capability. Zekathar's image reappeared on screen. Your resistance is noted and will be punished accordingly. The Varaxian Empire has subjugated 12 stellar systems. You will be the 13th. Alan ignored the threat. Status of the jump engines? 20 seconds, Greg answered. But they're moving to block our projected jump vectors. Alan studied the tactical display. Recalculate jump. Use the gravity well of that nearby asteroid field. That's dangerously close to, Greg began. Do it, Alan ordered. The ship shuddered under another impact. Shields at 30%, Olivia reported. Jump engines ready, Greg announced. Execute jump, Alan commanded. The stars on the view screen stretched into lines as the jump engaged. The ship groaned under the strain of the hasty emergency maneuver. When they emerged from the jump, the bridge was dark except for emergency lighting. The acrid smell of burned circuitry filled the air. Damage report, Alan called out, helping a fallen crew member to her feet. Greg checked his damaged console. Jump engines offline, main power at 40%, but we've lost them for now. Did the data packet transmit to Earth? Alan asked. Olivia nodded. Complete transmission before the first hit. Earth knows about the Varaxians now. Alan looked at the faces of his crew, scared but determined. They'll come looking for us and then they'll head for Earth. We need to gather as much intel on their capabilities as possible. He tapped his communication badge. All department heads report to the conference room immediately. Earth needs to know what's coming. As the crew scrambled to their emergency stations, Alan took one last look at the starfield now displayed on the partially functioning view screen. Out there, the Varaxians were hunting them, and beyond, Earth remained blissfully unaware that its peaceful existence was about to end. The battle for humanity's future had begun. 6 months after the encounter with the Varaxians, Earth had transformed. The nations of the world, once divided by old conflicts, now worked together under the shadow of an alien threat. Defense Director Karen Ellis stood at the window of the United Earth Defense Headquarters in Geneva, watching military vehicles move across the compound below. Another sleepless night? Asked a voice behind her. Karen turned to see Peter Wright, the lead engineer who had been analyzing the data from the Orion's Arrow encounter. His eyes were rimmed with dark circles, his clothes wrinkled from too many hours in the lab. Sleep is a luxury we can't afford, Karen replied. What have you found? Peter placed a tablet on the conference table. I've been studying the sensor, readings from the Varaxian ships. There's something unusual about their shield technology. He brought up a series of complex energy patterns on the screen. See these fluctuations? Their shields operate on a rotating frequency. Strong, but not perfect. There's a millisecond delay when they shift patterns. Karen moved closer to the screen. Can we exploit that? Maybe. If we time our weapons to hit. Precisely during that transition, we might break through. Peter ran a hand through his disheveled hair. But we'd need perfect timing and coordination across all defense platforms. Keep working on it, Karen said. I want a practical application, not just a theory. The door slid open, and Joe Rivera entered. The AI specialist had been working with Lieutenant Olivia Grant, one of the survivors from Orion's Arrow. We've made progress with the Varaxian communication systems, Joe announced. Olivia's linguistic analysis helped us develop an algorithm that might disrupt their command networks. Might? Karen questioned. It's untested against their actual systems, Joe admitted. But simulations show a 70% chance of creating temporary confusion in their fleet coordination. Karen nodded thoughtfully. Every advantage helps. What's the status of the civilian relocation? Dr. Susan Howard reports 60% of major urban populations have been moved to the underground shelters, Peter said, checking his tablet. Rural areas are at 30% compliance. Not enough, Karen muttered. The latest deep space scans suggest we have less than a month before they reach our solar system. The tension in the room grew heavier. The three of them knew what those words meant. Humanity was running out of time. Any word from the Orion's Arrow? Joe asked quietly. Karen shook her head. Their last transmission came 3 weeks ago. They've been gathering intelligence on Varaxian movements, but they're deep in enemy territory now. We have to assume we're on our own. An alarm suddenly blared throughout the building. The large screen on the wall automatically activated, showing a live feed from Earth's outer solar system monitoring station. Multiple unknown vessels detected passing Neptune's orbit, announced the automated system. Karen's blood ran cold. They're ahead of schedule. She pressed her communication badge. This is Director Ellis. Initiate Defense Protocol Alpha. All military personnel to battle stations. Civilian shelter operations accelerate to maximum capacity. Peter stared at the screen. There are more ships than we anticipated. The display showed at least 30 large vessels moving in perfect formation toward Earth. The Varaxian fleet had arrived. They bypassed our early warning systems, Joe noted, his voice tense. They must have technology that masks their approach, until they're relatively close. Karen straightened her shoulders. It doesn't change our plans. Alert the orbital defense platforms, and get me Captain Frank Morris on the Defender. Within minutes, Captain Morris appeared on the screen. Behind him, the bridge of Earth's largest battleship bustled with activity. Director Ellis, we've detected the Varaxian fleet, Morris reported. The Defender and our battle group are ready to engage. You're our first line of defense, Captain, Karen said. Your orders are to delay them as long as possible. Every hour you buy us is another hour to evacuate civilians. Morris nodded gravely. Understood. We'll give them a fight they won't forget. As the communication ended, Karen turned to her team. I want hourly updates on the civilian evacuations. Peter, implement your shield frequency analysis across all our weapon systems. Joe, deploy your communication disruption algorithm. We need every advantage we can get. They left the room quickly, each heading to their respective departments. Karen remained alone, looking at the display showing the approaching fleet. In her 20 years of military service, she had faced conflicts and crises of all kinds. But nothing like this. This was humanity's greatest test. 2 days later, the first battles began near Mars. Earth's defense forces fought bravely, but the technological gap was evident. The orbital platforms around Mars fell within hours. Captain Morris and the Defender battle group engaged in a desperate delaying action, using the asteroid belt for cover and guerrilla tactics. In the underground command center, Karen watched the updates with grim determination. Casualty reports flowed in steadily. The Varaxians were advancing, but slower than expected. The Defender is hitting and running rather than engaging directly, Peter noted, pointing to the tactical display. Morris is making them work for every kilometer. And our disruption algorithm is working, Joe added. Their formations break, occasionally showing communication gaps. But it's not enough, Karen said quietly. The door opened, and Olivia Grant entered. Despite her ordeal on the Orion's Arrow, she had volunteered to join Earth's defense team, offering her first-hand knowledge of the Varaxians. "Director, I've been analyzing the Varaxian battle patterns," Olivia said. "There's something you need to see." She brought up footage from the Mars engagement. "Watch how they react when our ships retreat." The video showed Varaxian vessels pursuing Earth ships with almost obsessive focus, sometimes breaking their own formations to chase fleeing targets. "They prioritize submission over tactical advantage," Olivia explained. "It's cultural. They can't stand the idea of prey escaping. They see it as disrespect." Karen's eyes narrowed. "Can we use that?" "I think so," Olivia replied. "If we design our defense with strategic retreats that look like fear but are actually traps." "Do it," Karen ordered. "Work with tactical command to adjust our strategy." As Olivia left, Karen turned back to the large display. The Varaxian fleet had passed Mars and was approaching Earth. Soon, the final battle would begin. "They expect us to surrender," she said to no one in particular. "They don't understand humans yet." In the days that followed, Earth's forces executed their new strategy. Small, fast ships would engage the Varaxians, then appear to flee in terror, drawing enemy vessels into carefully planned ambushes. It wasn't enough to win, but it slowed the advance. When the Varaxians finally reached Earth orbit, they found not a cowering planet ready to surrender, but a world prepared to fight for its existence. Every nation, every person had a role to play in the resistance that was about to begin. Karen stood in the command center, surrounded by humanity's best minds and bravest soldiers. Reports came in from around the globe as the first Varaxian landing crafts descended toward major cities. "And so it begins," she said, her voice steady despite everything. "The battle for Earth." Major Lisa Bell crouched behind the remains of a concrete wall, dust coating her uniform and face. Beside her, 6 resistance fighters waited for her signal. 3 weeks had passed since the Varaxians landed on Earth, and the battle was not going as the aliens had expected. "They're moving the supply containers into the building," whispered Sam, her communications specialist. Through his binoculars, he watched the Varaxian soldiers unloading crates from their hovering transport. Lisa checked her weapon. "Remember the plan. We hit fast, grab what we can, and disappear. No heroics." Her team nodded. They had all seen what happened to those who stood and fought the Varaxians directly. The aliens' technology was too advanced, their weapons too powerful. But guerrilla tactics were working. Hit and run, strike and fade. "Now," Lisa ordered. They moved like shadows across the ruined street. The Varaxian guards never saw them coming. Lisa's team used their sound suppressors, and 3 aliens dropped before an alarm could sound. They reached the containers, grabbing medical supplies and food rations. 2 minutes, Lisa reminded them. A sudden explosion rocked the area several blocks away. The remaining Varaxian guards turned toward the sound. It was the diversion team, drawing attention away from Lisa's operation. "Time to go," she said. They slipped away into the underground tunnel network that had become humanity's greatest advantage. The Varaxians, with their rigid military structure, preferred direct approaches. They hadn't expected humans to use sewers, subway tunnels, and hastily dug passages to move unseen through cities they supposedly controlled. Back at the resistance base, an old subway station converted into a command center, Lisa delivered the supplies to Dr. Nathan Cole, who ran the makeshift hospital. "You're a lifesaver, Major," Nathan said, immediately sorting through the medical supplies. "Literally." "Any word from other cities?" Lisa asked. Nathan nodded toward the communications room. "Chicago resistance hit a Varaxian patrol. Denver managed to disable one of their scout ships. They're still analyzing the technology." Lisa made her way to the command area where Colonel Roy Dawson was studying maps spread across a table. Red marks showed Varaxian positions. Blue showed human resistance cells. "Another successful raid," she reported. "But they're increasing. Patrols in the eastern sector." Roy looked up, his face showing the fatigue they all felt. "They're frustrated, that's good. Frustrated enemies make mistakes." The radio crackled. "Base, this is Lookout 3. Strange activity at the central landing zone. They're bringing in some kind of new equipment." Roy picked up the radio. Can you identify? Negative. Never seen anything like it. Large, cylindrical objects at least. 6 of them. Lisa and Roy exchanged concerned looks. New equipment meant new problems. Keep watching, Roy ordered. Report any changes. Lisa checked her watch. I should check on Paul's team. They were supposed to be back an hour ago. As if on cue, a commotion sounded from the tunnel entrance. Several figures emerged, supporting wounded comrades. Paul Collins, a former high school teacher who had become one of their best field operatives, was helping a young woman with a bloodied leg. What happened? Lisa rushed to help. We were checking out the research facility like you asked, Paul explained, lowering the wounded woman onto a cot. But we weren't alone. The Varaxians had prisoners there, their own people. Lisa froze. Their own people? Prisoners? Paul nodded, his face grim. Scientists, from what we could tell, being guarded by their own military. We managed to grab one during the confusion. He gestured behind him where 2 resistance fighters were escorting a Varaxian. The alien looked different from the soldiers they had encountered. Smaller, with lighter coloring and no combat armor. You captured a Varaxian scientist? Roy asked in disbelief. Are you insane? They'll tear the city apart looking for it. We had no choice, Paul replied. They saw us. It was capture or be captured. The Varaxian watched them with multiple eyes that blinked in sequence. A gesture they had learned indicated nervousness. I am Kraval, the alien said in halting English. Not soldier, observer of humans. Nathan approached cautiously. I should examine it. Them. Be careful, Lisa warned. As Nathan began a cautious examination, the radio crackled again. Base, lookout 3. They've activated those cylinder things. They're some kind of atmospheric processors. The air is changing color around the landing zone. Roy grabbed the radio. Get out of there. Now. Chemical weapons, Lisa whispered. The Varaxians were changing tactics. In the following days, a new phase of the war began. The Varaxians, frustrated by human resistance, deployed gas that made the air unbreathable in targeted areas. They expected submission. Instead, humans adapted. Gas masks were distributed. Underground operations increased. Meanwhile, Kraval, the captured scientist, began to communicate more freely with Dr. Heather Morgan, who had been assigned to learn what she could from the alien. Your species continues resistance, Kraval noted one evening as Heather checked the atmospheric readings in the secure room. Illogical. You cannot win. Humans don't always do the logical thing, Heather replied. This we observe, the alien said. High Marshal Zakhtar is disturbed by human behavior. Your tactics not in military manuals. Heather smiled slightly. We're improvising. Kraval's head tilted. This concept, improvis and not in Varaxian thinking. We follow established protocols. On the surface, the battle continued. The Varaxians controlled the cities in name only. Human resistance cells moved like ghosts through urban ruins, striking where least expected. Each day that Earth did not surrender infuriated High Marshal Zakhtar more. In his command ship orbiting Earth, Zakhtar summoned his generals. How can these primitives continue to resist? He demanded. 12 systems fell before us. Why not this one? General VK Nar, his second in command, displayed footage of human resistance fighters escaping through tunnels. They do not fight as expected, High Marshal. They refuse direct engagement. Then force them out, Zakhtar ordered. Burn their hiding places. We have tried, High Marshal. They have networks beneath every city. For each tunnel we destroy, they dig 2 more. Zakhtar struck the console in frustration. And the scientists they captured? No trace. They hide Kraval well. Back in the resistance base, Lisa was planning a new operation when Paul Collins burst into the command center. You need to see this, he said urgently. The scientist showed Dr. Morgan something important. In the secure room, Kraval had drawn complex diagrams that Heather was studying intently. It's their shield technology, she explained. The rotating frequencies that Engineer Wright identified. Craval has given us the complete cycle pattern. Why would you help us? Lisa asked the alien directly. Craval's eyes blinked in that now familiar sequence. Scientific curiosity. Your species, fascinating. Not like others we conquered. You fight differently. Think differently. Heather added. Craval believes their leadership is making a mistake by not studying us more before trying to conquer us. Can we use this information? Roy asked. Absolutely, Heather nodded. With this, we can predict exactly when their shields are weakest. If we coordinate a global strike at precisely the right moment, the plan spread through resistance cells worldwide. For the first time, humans would launch a coordinated attack rather than defensive actions. The target, the atmospheric processors that were making parts of Earth uninhabitable. On the day of the attack, Lisa led her team toward the nearest processor. Similar operations were happening in cities around the world, all timed to the second. Remember, she told her fighters, we hit when the shield cycled to frequency 7, not before, not after. The processor loomed ahead, a massive cylinder surrounded by a shimmering energy field and guarded by Varaxian soldiers. 30 seconds, Sam counted down. Lisa readied the specially modified weapon developed using Craval's information. Now, Sam called. They fired simultaneously. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the shields flickered and collapsed. Their weapons struck true, and the processor began to malfunction, its ominous hum fading. Across the globe, similar scenes played out. For the first time, the Varaxians faced a truly coordinated human offensive. By day's end, reports confirmed that 17 processors had been destroyed or disabled. In his orbiting command ship, High Marshal Zakathar received the news with growing rage, and though he would never admit it, fear. These humans were not following the expected pattern of a species facing superior technology and force. They should have surrendered weeks ago, he hissed to his generals. What makes them continue? None could answer. The battle for Earth had entered a new phase, and the once confident Varaxians found themselves facing an enemy they increasingly did not understand. 2 months into the invasion, something unexpected was happening. Dr. Heather Morgan spent most of her time with Craval, the captured Varaxian scientist. What had begun as interrogation had slowly transformed into a genuine exchange of knowledge. I do not understand, Craval said one day as they shared a meal. The Varaxian had adapted to some human foods, particularly enjoying fruits. Your people continue fighting when defeat is certain. This defies our understanding of rational species behavior. Heather smiled slightly. Humans are stubborn. We don't give up easily. But your resistance has no logical purpose, Craval insisted. You merely delay the inevitable and increase suffering. That's where you're wrong, Heather replied. We don't see it as inevitable. As long as we keep fighting, there's hope. Craval's multiple eyes blinked in that pattern Heather now recognized as confusion. Hope. This concept exists in our language but not as you use it. For Varaxians, planning is based on probabilities, not hope. Their conversation was interrupted when Major Lisa Bell entered the room, followed by a young woman carrying a baby. Sorry to disturb you, Lisa said. The new shelter area is being prepared. Carol and her baby need a quiet place for a few hours. Craval froze, all eyes fixed on the small human in Carol's arms. The baby, about 6 months old, stared back at the alien with curious eyes. A juvenile, Craval whispered. So small. Carol looked nervous, but Heather nodded reassuringly. It's okay. Craval won't hurt anyone. The baby made a happy gurgling sound and reached one tiny hand toward the alien. Craval remained perfectly still, as if afraid to move. The young one shows no fear, the Varaxian noted with what sounded like awe. No understanding of enemy and ally. Babies don't hate or fear until they're taught to, Heather explained. Later that night, after Carol and her baby had been relocated to the new shelter area, Craval seemed deep in thought. Your young develop differently than ours, the alien finally said. Varaxian hatchlings emerge with basic survival instincts fully formed. They know to fear threats immediately. Human children have to learn about the world, Heather explained. They're born with almost no knowledge, just potential. Inefficient for survival, Craval commented. But good for adaptation and learning new things, Heather countered. Our children can imagine possibilities that don't exist yet. The conversation planted a seed that would grow in unexpected ways. Meanwhile, above Earth, High Marshal Zicthar's frustration had turned to obsession. The human resistance had destroyed more atmospheric processors and had even managed to disable a Varaxian ground transport factory. 6 of our command centers attacked in the same day, General Viknar reported. The humans are coordinating better than expected. How? Zikathar demanded. Their communication infrastructure is destroyed. They adapt, the general replied. They use old technologies we didn't bother to disable. Physical messengers, radio frequencies we considered obsolete. And the scientists they captured? Still, no trace of Craval. We believe they are using his knowledge against us. Zikathar struck the console. Increase ground forces in all major cities. I want these humans crushed. Back on Earth, the resistance leaders gathered to discuss a new discovery. Paul Collins had led a daring raid on a Varaxian communication center and returned with surprising information. They have a religion, Paul explained to the assembled group. Or something like it. Their records refer to ancient texts called the Soul Chronicles that guide their expansion. What kind of religion promotes conquering other species? Lisa asked. Paul displayed the translated documents on a screen. It's complicated. They believe advanced species have a duty to rule lesser ones. But there's something else, a prophecy about finding a species with what they call soul sight. What does that mean? Roy asked. It's not completely clear, Paul admitted. Something about the ability to see beyond established patterns and connect without shared experience. Heather had been quiet, but now she spoke up. Craval has been asking strange questions lately, about human emotions, about how we understand each other without explicit communication. Why would that matter to them? Lisa wondered. I think it might relate to this soul sight concept, Heather replied. Craval seems amazed by our ability to empathize and understand each other's feelings without explicit data. The next day, Heather conducted an experiment. With permission from the resistance leadership, she brought several children from the shelter to meet Craval. The children ranged in age from 5 to 12 years old. The Varaxian scientist was clearly uncomfortable at first. Why bring juveniles here? I want to show you something about humans, Heather explained. The children were initially shy, but curiosity soon overcame their fear. A girl named Zoe, about 12 years old, approached Craval first. Your eyes move in patterns, she said. Different patterns mean different feelings, right? Craval stiffened. How do you know this? It took your scientists weeks to begin recognizing basic patterns, Zoe shrugged. It's obvious when you're scared they go like this. She moved her fingers in a quick sequence. When you're interested, they go like this. She demonstrated another pattern. The other children joined in, pointing out patterns they had noticed in just minutes of observation. Your juveniles detected my emotional states instantly, Craval said to Heather later, after the children had left. Even my own species requires training to recognize these patterns. Children are often more perceptive about emotions than adults, Heather explained. They haven't learned to ignore subtle cues yet. This ability, Craval's voice had a strange quality Heather hadn't heard before. It matches descriptions in our ancient texts. The soul sight that would mark a species worthy of reverence rather than conquest. Reverence? Heather repeated, surprised. The Soul Chronicles speak of finding a species that can see the patterns behind the patterns and know the unsaid message, Craval explained. For generations, we believed it was just allegory. You're saying human empathy, especially in children, matches your religious prophecy? Craval's eyes moved in a pattern Heather had never seen before. I must speak with your leaders, and High Marshal Zakathar must know of this discovery. He won't care, Heather said. He's determined to conquer us. Perhaps, Craval agreed. But among our people, the Soul Chronicles hold power even over military command. If the evidence is clear. That night, the resistance leadership debated what to do with this new information. Some, like Roy, thought it was a trick. Others, like Heather, believed it represented their best chance to end the war. It's worth trying, Lisa finally said. We're winning small battles, but we can't win the war. If there's even a small chance their religious beliefs could help us. Paul nodded. We need to get this information to High Marshal Zakthar, and we need to show him, not just tell him about human children and their abilities. You're suggesting we send children to the enemy? Roy asked, appalled. No, Lisa replied, an idea forming. We bring the enemy to the children. We need to capture Zakthar himself. The room fell silent as they contemplated what seemed like an impossible mission. But after months of fighting for survival, impossible tasks no longer seemed so daunting. Have a plan, Lisa finally said. But it's going to require all of us working together and taking the biggest risk yet. Lisa Bell's plan was bold and dangerous. Some called it insane. But after 3 months of brutal warfare, conventional strategies were no longer an option. The Varaxians will be moving their command center to this location tomorrow, Lisa explained, pointing to a map displayed on the cracked screen. Around her stood the key members of the resistance. According to Craval, High Marshal Zakthar personally oversees operations every 3rd cycle. And we're going to walk right in? Paul Collins asked skeptically. Not exactly, Lisa replied. Craval has provided us with Varaxian military codes. We'll send a message claiming to have captured high-value human resistance leaders ready for interrogation. Bait, Roy nodded. But will Zakthar come himself? Craval says he will, Heather Morgan confirmed. The High Marshal has become obsessed with understanding why we keep fighting. He'll want to interrogate resistance leaders personally. And when he arrives, Roy asked. We spring the trap, Lisa said. Not to kill him, but to show him the truth. The next day, a small team gathered in an abandoned school building. Lisa, Paul, and Heather were there, along with 12-year-old Zoe, Rodriguez, and 5 other children who had shown the strongest ability to read Varaxian emotions. Craval sat among them, explaining how to address the High Marshal. You must show proper respect initially, the scientist advised. Then demonstrate your abilities. The evidence must be undeniable. Heather looked at the children with concern. Are you sure about this? It will be dangerous. Zoe nodded solemnly. We've been hiding for months. If we can help end this war, we want to try. A resistance fighter burst into the room. They're coming. 3 transport ships approaching from the east. Everyone moved to their positions. The children were hidden in an adjoining room. Craval stood beside Lisa and Paul, who would pose as captured resistance leaders. The walls shook as Varaxian ships landed outside. Heavy footsteps approached, and the door was forced open. 6 Varaxian soldiers entered, weapons drawn, followed by a larger figure wearing ornate armor. High Marshal Zakthar stepped forward, his multiple eyes scanning the room. When he saw Craval, he made a sound that the humans had learned indicated surprise. Scientist Craval, he said in the Varaxian language. You live. Yes, High Marshal, Craval replied. I have been treated well, and have made a discovery of great importance. These humans have corrupted you, Zakthar accused. You speak their words and aid their resistance. I speak truth, High Marshal, Craval insisted. I have found evidence of the soul sight. The prophecy is real. Zakthar's eyes flickered in a pattern of disbelief. Impossible. The Soul Chronicles speak of beings worthy of reverence. These humans are primitive warriors, nothing more. Lisa stepped forward. We're not warriors by choice. We fight because we must. Silence, Zakthar ordered. You will be taken to our ship for proper interrogation. Before you do that, Heather said calmly, we ask that you witness something. Just 5 minutes. Then, if you still wish to take us, we won't resist. Zakthar considered for a moment, curiosity overcoming anger. Show me this evidence. Then you will submit to the Empire. Heather nodded to Paul, who opened the door to the adjoining room. The children entered quietly, their eyes wide but unafraid as they looked at the Varaxian soldiers. "Human juveniles?" Zakthar said with disdain. "This is your evidence?" Zoe stepped forward, studying Zakthar's face with intense concentration. Then she spoke in careful, practiced words of the Varaxian language that Kraval had taught her. "Your right middle eye twitches when you speak untruths," she said. "You are afraid of what we represent." Zikathar stepped back, his weapons lowering slightly. "How does this juvenile know our language, and how—" Another child, a boy named Kevin, pointed to one of the Varaxian soldiers. "That one doesn't want to be here. He has young ones at home. He worries about them." The soldier's weapon dipped, his eyes moving in a pattern of shock. "And you," said another child to a different soldier, "you don't believe in this war anymore. You've seen too many die for nothing." One by one, the children spoke, identifying emotions and thoughts that the Varaxians had believed were hidden. Kraval approached Zikathar. "I have tested them extensively, High Marshal. They can read our emotional patterns without training. They sense thoughts we do not express. Is this not the soul sight described in the chronicles?" Zakthar's arms lowered, completely, his weapon forgotten. "How is this possible? Even our own species requires years to learn these patterns." "Human children are born without knowledge," Kraval explained, "but with great capacity for emotional understanding. They see patterns adult humans often miss. They connect without shared experience." Zoe approached Zikathar without fear, looking up at the towering alien. "You're not really angry," she said gently. "You're sad and confused. You've lost soldiers, friends. You don't understand why we keep fighting when we could just give up." The High Marshal stared at the small human before him. For several long moments no one moved or spoke. Then, slowly, Zikathar lowered himself to one knee, bringing his eyes level with Zoe's. "The prophecy speaks true," he said quietly. "These young ones see beyond the surface. They have the soul sight." He turned to his soldiers. "Lower your weapons." Commander Alan Price had survived. After months of evading Varaxian patrols in space, the Orion's Arrow had returned to Earth in time to witness something extraordinary. The Varaxian fleet was withdrawing from low orbit, moving into positions that were clearly non-aggressive. "What's happening?" Greg Martinez asked as they monitored the movement from their hidden position in lunar orbit. "I don't know," Alan admitted, "but they're not firing on Earth anymore." A transmission came through on all frequencies in both Varaxian and multiple human languages. The face of High Marshal Zikathar appeared on their screen. "People of Earth," he began, his voice different than Alan remembered. Less harsh. "The Varaxian Empire acknowledges the unique gift of your species. For generations, our people have followed the Soul Chronicles, which foretold meeting a species with the ability to see beyond words and actions to the truth beneath. We have found this gift in your children." The transmission showed scenes of human children interacting with Varaxian officials, demonstrating their intuitive understanding of alien emotions and thoughts. "According to our most sacred beliefs," Zarkthar continued, "such a species is to be revered, not conquered. I hereby declare an end to hostilities and offer the protection of the Varaxian Empire to Earth and its people, especially its children, who will be honored as the Soul Seers." Foretold in our ancient texts, 6 months later, Earth was rebuilding. Varaxian technology, once used for destruction, now helped repair the damage of war. Former enemies worked side by side. In Geneva, at the new Earth Varaxian Concord headquarters, Lisa Bell watched as Zoe Rodriguez guided a group of Varaxian officials through a cultural exchange program. The aliens listened to the young girl with reverence, carefully following her instructions on how to interact with humans. "Did you ever imagine it would end like this?" Heather asked, joining Lisa by the window. Lisa shook her head. "Never. I expected to fight until the end. Instead, we found understanding," Heather said, "through children. Outside, Varaxian ships patrolled Earth's orbit, not as conquerors but as protectors. The once hostile species now bowed before the children of Earth, guardians of a gift they themselves had lost long ago, the ability to see with the heart as well as the eyes. and across the stars, word spread of the humans and their remarkable children, ensuring that Earth would never again face the threat of alien conquest. For who would dare attack a world protected by the Varaxian Empire and blessed with the legendary soul sight?